My name's Erin. I am with Emmy Action, and this is Sarah Ramey, who's probably quite a few in the community already know. And so we are so excited to get to spend this afternoon with her to talk to her a little bit about the book, The Lady's Handbook for Her Mysterious Illness, which was published in 2020, right?
Yes,
And
March
the
of
paperback,
2020.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Mhm.
paperback came out this year, right?
Yeah, it just came out about a month ago.
Awesome. So wonderful. And I know that I think some of people in the community saw you on an artist salon that we had with Millions Missing. So you are very well known for your lovely voice, but excited to also talk to you about your writing today. So we'll kind of just jump in and get started. So Sarah, if you want to tell us a little bit why you decided to write this book.
Yeah, so I think first I'll give a little introduction, just kind of
Yeah,
how it began for me and kind of what's going on, because like so many of us, you can't tell. So,
definitely.
so for me, I got sick. I'm 40 now, and I got sick when I was 22. I was a senior in college, and it started off, I just had a UTI, just a normal UTI that was pretty persistent. And so I went to a urologist to just have it taken care of. And he performed a procedure that went all wrong. And the procedure was botched, extremely painful. And I went into septic shock and had to be hospitalized for a week. This is an infection of the bloodstream, and it's, fatal if you're not
Yeah.
treated. It's a big deal. And so sort of overnight went from just being just a college student with really very few medical issues, if any, to suddenly being hospitalized with very severe pelvic pain and really this explosion of sort of two tracks of problems. For me, there was like the mechanical stuff. I had very severe pelvic pain, like vaginal, bladder, abdominal, that started to spread and got very, very, very bad. And then also my colon stopped functioning really almost at all. And so those are sort of two mechanical issues. But then on the other track was what I would call the quote mysterious symptoms, where I was, profoundly exhausted, all the stuff that everybody in this community will recognize. I was
Yeah.
profoundly exhausted. My muscles ached and burned. My brain, I'd been taking an extra class, and now I couldn't. I almost had to drop out of school because I couldn't read barely at all. A laundry list of many, many, many symptoms that are recognizable to people in the ME/CFS community. But I think because these sort of two things went together, this is part of it. All the pain, the colon problems, but also all the ME/CFS problems. This was so mysterious. This just baffled every single doctor. I was in the hospital that week, and they're like, "Well, we don't know why this is happening to you. We don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe some infectious agent has been released into your body. Maybe we just don't know. But you're young, you're healthy, you're going to bounce back, you're going to be fine," which is, I think, also something that a lot of us hear, when we
Yeah.
get
Mhm.
Epstein-Barr, or we get whatever the infectious agent is. And so I went back to college, and I did not get better. I was sleeping constantly. My muscles did not stop aching and burning. My joints hurt. Over time, I started to accrue all these just 50 symptoms, sensitivity to everything, all these digestive problems. I mean, just as we all know, it just goes on and on and on and on. And I went to, in the beginning, a million doctors to try to figure out what was wrong, because something was obviously horribly wrong. And in the beginning, they all took it as seriously as they would take, any serious illness. They looked for, they took it so seriously that they looked for like all of the very worst illnesses that you could have, because they're like, well, it sounds like you could have one of these very serious, terrible illnesses. But when all the tests came back negative, 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 a new diagnosis started to emerge, which was that, Ms. Ramey, we believe that your problems may be psychological, and which is also obviously so common. It is the norm for patients like like us. But I didn't know that at the time. And so I was still a college student. And I remember the first time a doctor said that to me, it was just like a dagger in my heart. I felt I was so hurt, but I also really internalized it. I was like, oh, maybe that is it. And I, for a while, like pursued that
Hmm.
as maybe that is what's happening, but of course it wasn't. Um, so to make a very long story short, because it's been 18 years, all of those problems to sort of greater and lesser degrees have persisted with this. The pelvic pain was later diagnosed as complex regional pain syndrome, which is the most painful pain syndrome you can have. It's a horrible disease. I can't have sex. I can't wear pants. On and on. I can wear overalls. But and then my colon deteriorated to the point where I have an ileostomy now, which is like a colostomy bag. And then the MECFS has sort of gone through phases. I was at the very, very severe end of the spectrum for many years. I'm not at that end of the spectrum, but I'm not that far away from it. Doing this today is like my big,
Yeah.
this is my big event for the day. But as anybody who's been at the severe end knows, like that's like triumph. That's like to be able to do this is like to me is so exciting and thrilling. And so anyway, it's a very long answer to your question, which is why did I write the book? Which is in the beginning, I had absolutely no idea that I was not the only person that this had happened to, which is very common. I really thought that I was just, an N of one and that this was unique to me, or that it was psychological. And then as time went on and I started to learn more, as I was describe it, as I sort of like started to tear through like the fabric of reality and was like, wait a second, there's something on the other side here, which is like all of this data about MCFS and these illnesses and how complicated it is, but how real it is. And like that there's really actually quite a lot of science. And it was not that there was science on one side and my subjective experience on the other side. There's actually a lot of very serious, credible scientists who were taking these patients seriously and coming up with all kinds of abnormalities in the studies that they were performing. And so I wanted to write a book that was about kind of that journey, which I think is very common kind of in the broad strokes of like kind of what happened to me. That story is not unique to me. It is the norm in many ways, in like sort of very broad strokes. And so I wanted to give a voice to myself, but also to other people, especially in the beginning, in the oddies, like there wasn't very much like it wasn't that there wasn't activism, but there wasn't the social media sort of strength that there is now, like with you guys and with so many other organizations.
Hmm.
Uh, there just wasn't a lot for people in this community, and so it just felt very important to do something to like send up a flare for people like us. It and then it took me, my book was sold in 2010, it was due in 2011, and it was turned in 2018. So if you feel behind on your work and you have one of these illnesses, it's normal. It's
Yeah.
to be expected. Don't feel bad about yourself. It's not you, it's the illness. But anyway, so it took me a really long time. So now I'm like, I feel like I'm in very good company. There's a lot of people who are really raising the alarm, like any action and so many artists and that's great. But that in the beginning, it didn't feel that way. I really felt like I was the only person on earth who had ever like thought to write about this. There was so little written about these types of problems.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I think what is so profound about writing and telling your story, right, is like A, you recognize you're not the only one, and then B, finding community is so important. And ME Action, we always say like community is the heart of what we do and the heart of what kind of keeps us moving forward. And you talk a little bit about what it was like to find you had like an interaction with someone around a table about you found the first woman who also had all these mysterious illnesses, and then you kind of go on and realize there's quite a lot and a lot more. And so I'm just wondering, from those conversations around a dinner table to social media to now having a platform with a book, how has finding community helped you? And what is something that you like really take away from finding that community?
Yeah, so great question. I think everybody that has it's kind of it's not unique to just these types of illnesses, but it's really exaggerated with these types of illnesses. How common it is to lose your friends, like your ride or die people,
Yeah.
and because they don't it's really what I think it is it's the breakdown. Like your doctor is the one that needs to be the one affirming to the world and to your community, like this is very real. Here's what we can do to at least offer
Mm-hmm.
support to this person. Like that should be coming from the medical community. And when it's not, when there is no help from the medical community, while I don't like it, I can understand a little bit more when friends and family, they're like, well, you don't have a diagnosis, and then they start to pull away. And this is the opposite of what should be happening. Like when you're sick, you need your friends and your family and your loved ones like more than you have ever needed them in your life. And so for me, that's been, I think, like the greatest heartbreak in my life is losing people that I really cared about and that I I loved for reasons that were not my fault. And like that and so finding community in the this group of people who have similar illnesses is, to me, it really is one of the most important things that you can, or that any of us can do. And I think there are different communities that sort of suit different
Mm-hmm.
people's
Yeah.
needs. And because there's some stuff online that like is too, I don't love social media. And so I get a little agitated. Like if there's just too much activity, I just get kind of overwhelmed. But a lot of people don't. It's like they're finally able to engage with the world and tell them how they feel and be an
Yeah.
activist. And so I really think it's just different for different people, but it's really worth like pushing to try to find at least one community that you feel seen and that you can talk about what's actually happening in your life and but also like celebrate the little tiny wins in your life without people being like, oh, are you better now? Because that's what happens if you're in the
Yeah.
sort of world of the well, is if I post anything that's like, I went on a walk, they're like, oh my God, it's over. Hallelujah. And of course, it's not. Whereas if I'm in, a friend of mine, Rachel Riggs, that people might know in this community, she's wonderful. She has a community that I joined that I love that's just like a really lovely group of people. And in that group, I always feel like, seen. Like I don't post a lot because I don't use a lot of social media, but I just feel like I'm with my people that like even when I'm just witnessing what they're doing. And that is such a balm to me because this is one of the things I read about in the book that witness, just the concept of like being seen,
Mm-hmm.
it is it can't be overstated. I think it's something that people don't realize how much it is like a primary human need until it's gone, until people are not witnessing and they're saying, well, you to me, or I don't believe you, or have you tried exercising, or whatever it is. And so to have people to just witness things as they are, no matter how bad they are, no matter how difficult, is medicine to me. It doesn't cure you, but it is medicine for your soul that
Yes.
is, and your soul, I think, receives a lot of gets beat up along the way with this illness because it lasts for so long. There's so little support, and so any medicine that you can pull in that's not for your physical body but that's for your soul is really critical to like hone in on. I would say that I hone in on that stuff before I hone in on some of the cure seeking or any new medical treatments. I really tend to put like soul needs first at this point just because I've been sick for so long. And like I I don't know if this treatment over here is going to work. Maybe I'll try it, but I do know that being connected to people that I care about who can see me, that does help me and that helps my soul. And so I'm going to prioritize that because it's a for sure fail safe method of feeling a little bit better.
I love that. I think that's so important. And like you said, like the helping to heal the soul in some regards, I think is so valuable. And like you said, witnessing is such a powerful tool that we can do. It's a tool that we don't actually utilize that often sometimes when we're speaking. Sometimes listening, truly listening, can be a skill that needs to be advanced as well. So I think that's such an important part of it. So thank you for speaking to that. And I'm sure those in the community who are watching, you know how powerful it is just to have someone not try to fix you and not try to like give you recommendations, but just to sit and be present with you can mean the world. So yeah, go ahead.
Can I say one more thing? One thing I have noticed that actually helps me kind of rebuild certain friendships that kind of deteriorated for no reason, like not, they just deteriorated because I was sick and they didn't know what to
Yeah.
do. One of the things, speaking of witness, that like when your friends know, because I've had a lot of friends that are like, well, but your problems are so big now. I feel like I cannot come to you with my problems anymore. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is something that have like developed an incredible skill for listening to your problems. I want you to come to me with your problems, no matter how small, as long as it's just mutual and you can hold me saying, I woke up in like a puddle of poop from my ileostomy this morning and it was horrible, and that's okay, that they can like learn to hold those things. Like that to me, that like education of a friend of like how a sick person can really be there for them, but also how, to teach them how to be there for a sick person. And it doesn't need to it doesn't need to damage your relationship. It just needs, but it does need to change because it isn't going to be the same as it was before. And they usually need to learn the skills of like being able to hold really tough stuff, but like it's not actually that hard. You just have to kind of build that muscle up a little bit to
Yeah.
really do it. And so for me, really talking about that explicitly with my friends instead of letting them kind of fade away because they're afraid to tell me about their boy trouble. I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
want to hear about boy trouble. Tell me all the gossip. I want to hear.
Yeah.
And so, but I think that the reason I just wanted to like pipe up again about this is that
Yeah.
rebuilding some of those friendships has been so important. And it really did take like being really clear with some of those people, like, listen, I think we're growing apart because of my illness. I don't want that. So like let's take this on and like look at how we could still really be there for each other.
That's awesome. And that's just so powerful to be able to voice that and to say that and to, create those boundaries and also create those and speak to the needs that you need to have met. I think is so powerful.
Yeah.
So I think that, I mean, again, these are all the skill sets that can be uncomfortable at times, right? Because it's not easy to ask for what we need and especially in friendships or relationships. So I think but I do find that the reward is immense if you can step over that little awkwardness and that little feeling of like, ooh, where's this gonna go?
Yes.
The reward is can be valuable. What you speak to is having those friendships come back into your life. So
And,
yeah,
and and I wouldn't do that with everybody. If it was just like
yeah,
some periphery friend that fell away, because there can be this sense of like I have to repair all the. I'm not going to lose a single friend. But if it's not somebody that's worth it to you, definitely don't waste energy on that. But sometimes it's people that you really care about, and you know deep down that they can do this and they want to do this. They
yeah,
just don't know how. I would make that distinction. Don't waste your time on people.
yeah.
It's not worth it.
The key people identify. Yeah, no. Well, thank you. And I think one thing that I mean, writing your story down in a book, and then also I know like during Millions Missing, we ask people to share their story, and like you said, finding community. But what really like recommendations do you have for people to share their story? Because like it can be nerve wracking. It can be there can be a lot of fear or anxiety around sharing it. But yeah, what would you say for people about taking that step to being public with what they're going through, and kind of then on the other side of it, what has and maybe you spoke to a little bit on the other side too, but what has come of you because of sharing your story?
Right. So yeah, this has been for me, it's very difficult. Like I really empathize with anybody who's having trouble reaching out to their family or their friends to try to explain themselves. But for me, it has been like if I could just do one thing to make my life a little bit better, it is reaching out to friends and family first, but also to the larger public about what's going on, and to like really, as I say in the book, like kind of open a window onto your life so that people really can see you and you don't just feel like you're disappearing from, like, that you're missing, that you're
Yeah.
that you have disappeared from planet Earth when you haven't, when you're still here. And so for me, I started with writing some pretty epic letters to my family and friends. Like they were pretty long, and I'm like a writer, so they were really long. But but I really wanted to like paint a picture of what it was really
Yeah.
like, and to say, and I think that for anybody, it's important to paint a picture and to be like, here, to be willing to be vulnerable enough to go beyond saying like I don't feel well, to really say like here's what it is actually like, and to go into what it feels like in your body, or like and you can use, you don't have to like be a wordsmith, you can use like what other people have said about it, what I've said about it, what Whitney Defoe has said about, lots
Yeah.
of people wrote about this, and I think it's perfectly fine to repurpose other people's shares about their experience for your own family, especially if you're really sick, and just to do it, to just say, have a little header like family. I feel like there's a disconnect between the way that you perceive me and the way that it is. This person over here, let's say it's Whitney, has like really said it all, and to just, maybe with their permission, if it was me, without my permission, but for somebody else, to just say, here is a really good description of what it is actually like. And to really, like I said, like be willing to be explicit about it, because otherwise, when it's too vague for people, I think they have trouble kind of like understanding what you're talking about,
Yeah.
right? Like, and so like for me, like if I have this neighbor in my building who knows that something is wrong with me, but like cannot stop herself every time she sees me being like, well, you look pretty good. You look pretty well to me. I mean, I don't really understand what you're saying because I haven't explained it to her. But the
Yeah.
other day I was like, listen, I won't say her name, but listen, so and so. And I talked to her, I was like, so I've got, ME/CFS, describe that a little bit. I was like, but I also have an ileostomy. Do you know what that is? And we went into talking about that. And that was like something that was tangible to her, that, she was like, oh, I see. But she just needed me to be more explicit than one would. But for me, it was driving me insane to have her like try to be like, I caught you going for a short walk outside. And so to just try to like paint a picture for her really helped. And like ever since I've seen her since that happened, she's like, can I help? Like, is there something that I can do? And so that was like sort of this microcosm of telling people how it really is, whether that's a letter to friends and family, whether that's a book. I like caution people in writing a book. It's very difficult to write a book. People are often like, once I write a book, I will be all better. And I felt that way at different times. And it's hard. It's very
Yeah,
hard.
I know.
But like social media is like a perfect, if you're up for it, always up for it, but if you are up for it, I have seen that be incredibly healing for people to just like open that window and be like, here's what it is actually like. Like, here is what I actually look like when I can't shower for 7 days, like because I am exhausted. Here is what I am actually feeling today. Here's how it hurts me when somebody says this common thing that
Yeah.
people say sensitive, whatever. That stuff, I think, if you are up for it and it feels good to you, if it doesn't feel good to you, then do it. But that type of stuff, I think it can be kind of scary to start doing it, but I think the reward of feeling seen and witnessed in that way is so enormous, like we were talking about before. I know that I struggle with this because I always feel worried about posting stuff online. I don't post very much. But every time I do, and it's about what's really going on, my God, I feel so much better. And I just feel this enormous weight, because I think a lot of us have this constant conversation with like imaginary prayers in our heads all the time that like can never resolve because it's not real. And so to just have your side of the conversation, and then have usually a whole lot of people be like, "We see you, we witness you, I'm sorry," It's like incredible medicine that you're not receiving otherwise. So I think I'm sort of talking to myself now. It's really useful to use social media if you can, if it's healthy
Yeah.
for you, to tell your story in a way that's less daunting than like I'll tell my story once I write my memoir, because that can really take a very, very long time, and you don't want to wait to tell your story until your memoir comes out.
No, and I think, part of what Emmy Action we recognize is the power your story has in advocacy. And,
Yeah.
and I think not just, like you said, advocacy with your family, that's important because it's building awareness, friends and family, coworkers, if that's able to work. But it's also, then doing it on the other level, right? Like talking to representatives or city officials and things like that. Like that is so powerful to tell your story, and particularly now with COVID, and that
Yes.
the numbers of people who might be diagnosed with ME, there's a high chance it's going to be a large population. It will be increased in those numbers. So I think it's just so important now for ME people to come out and share their story. So those who are suffering with long COVID or possibly now maybe being diagnosed with ME can find community and find help, and particularly with regards to like the pacing and all of that stuff, like those recommendations that can really truly lead you, if you get the wrong information, lead you down a really horrific path. So hearing stories now is so prevalent. So
Yeah, absolutely. I really agree. And it makes it the more stories where they're like they're there and there's like hundreds of thousands of them, it makes it much harder for whoever the naysayers are, whether they're in medicine or whoever
yeah,
they are. It makes it much harder to keep saying nay, like because it's like people who are willing to say something behind somebody's back, but like if they had to say it to their face, they can't do it anymore. And I think that there is a similar sort of dynamic, which is like when there's so many people and they are visible, they're not just like behind closed doors where they can't advocate for themselves, which is how a lot of us feel a lot of the time.
mm-hmm.
um, to be visible in this way that if they're gonna say something bad, there's like an army of people that are gonna come in and be like, well, actually, I have the same story. I have the same story. I have the same story. Are we all wrong?
Yeah,
And I think that that really helps to just make this thing that is in many ways invisible, just because pain and fatigue are, there's a lot of my friends that are visible, but like some of the primary symptoms like pain or fatigue, they are invisible. And so using your words and your story is a way to make visible things that are otherwise.
yeah, no, I love it. One thing you talk about in the book, and then also because you participate in the artist salon, is that there's also kind of different ways to tell your story. It can be through photography or your books, written word. It can be through paintings, and I know that you are a singer, and so I was just wondering, can you talk a little bit about the role art has played in your journey, and like where that, yeah, the combination of those two worlds.
Yeah. So there's the writing, which is like an artistic outlet, and but that is a little less artistic and a little more like that was harder.
Yeah.
For just as an artistic outlet, for me, music is so cathartic. Like it is in many ways, and this is common, is it's like the place that I go when I have like something that is so heavy that I cannot process it
Yeah.
otherwise, which is, I think, very common for all artists. And so having that always be there, even when I was like at my very, very, very worst and was completely bedridden, and couldn't get up, like I would still like write songs in my head to hold on to for if I ever got up again. And like that, even though that wasn't like a silver lining, that wasn't like that just made that time fine.
Yeah.
It did not. It did not, but it was something to hold on to. And for me, one of the functions of art has always been, it when you feel like you are disappearing, like it really is a way of saying like, Ramey was here, I was on this earth,
Mhm.
and I made something, whether it's visual art or a poem or a song or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And because it can, when you're in that place, and this is not just at the severest end, like when it just feels like you're just existing, like you're just strong enough to have your breath go in and out, like it can really be hard to hold on to your just a sense of meaning or purpose or any of those things. And what I've seen, not to go back to Whitney Defoe again, but like Whitney, I follow his Instagram, and he's recently started like posting all of these photographs of himself, and he obviously used to be a photographer, and sort of like I just recognize that like I am here, like I am here, I am here, and I just I think it's so healthy, and you don't have to be like a great artist. Like I
Yeah.
have a thing that I do every morning. It's called Art First, and it's that I get up. I'm not a visual artist, but I'm like teaching myself to draw and to do things.
Yeah.
Do it first because if I don't, I will often like I'll do email instead, and then I'll be zapped for the day, or I'll do
Mhm.
some other thing, and then I actually can't get to it. And I, again, like I said, I sort of prioritize soul activity more than I prioritize other stuff. And so doing that has had, I just started doing that this year, has had this like incredible effect on my life because it is like a way of creating memories. Like, you know, when you are sort of deficient in creating memories, otherwise, because you're not seeing people and you're not going out,
Yeah.
that is one of the things that like it takes like a couple of years where you're like, oh my god, I have no new memories, and like that's really tough. And so for me, having like a little like a new drawing every day is like a new memory, and it's damp on that day where otherwise they were all just kind of blending together into. And so that it sounds small, but like for me, it's actually been really helpful, and that's true for music as well. I will often do music and stuff like that in the morning as well as a way to just kind of feed that part of myself first, and then if I can get to the rest, I get to the rest. Yeah.
Awesome. I love what you talked about. The idea that like, that it's a way to connect, and also show that you're here. I think that is so profound. And yeah, I think that's really wonderful. And I'm sure those in the community, 'cause as we saw in the artist salon, there is so many artists in this community.
I just want to shout you guys out and every artist that was in that. That was such an incredible event. If you're on this and you didn't see this event, I think you can go back and watch it. And
Yeah.
I think you guys are going to do more, maybe more.
Yeah, so it is on YouTube, on our YouTube page. You can watch the full entire article on it. I will say, I think it's like an hour and 45 minutes. It was only supposed to be an hour, but we kept going because we had so many people we wanted to share. And then also, yeah, we're going to be doing something around Severe ME Day, and then hopefully another salon in the winter or late fall. So just because it was such a hit, and because it was so profound. We want to have it again so that we can continue to connect at that on that level. So yeah.
That was such an important, like I said to you before this call, like I connect with a lot of artists and musicians, but to be in a community, people who have the same illness as you and the same limitations, who are pushing to just be there, to just show up,
Mm-hmm.
to share this stuff. It just meant so much to me to be like surrounded by all of this incredible beauty,
Yeah.
incredible art, and to just again, that's just like we are here and like are doing incredible things. And it's wonderful to kind of get to witness that in a very real way, not in like an affirmation way. It's like I am here, but
Yeah.
like to really, really see that and to be enveloped by that art. Really, it meant so much to me. So I really want to thank you guys for doing that because it was wonderful.
Yeah. It was our first time doing anything, and like I said, it was so wonderful that we are now committed to doing it more times because I do think, like you said, it created a different energy that we've kind of may not have experienced in some other areas that we do work with the community around. So I think
Yeah.
But it's all connected, right? Like if you are an artist and that's your way of activism, or you can find other ways, then, also we had people that was the first time doing anything, was calling in. And so I think that was what was cool. And also just the level of artistic skill, like it ranged, right? We had a person who was first time she ever wrote a poem and she came to share it. And it was just, the community was so supportive and so giving of their time and their praise. And, no one felt like, oh, I'm not good enough to share. Everyone felt welcome. So I think that was what was really cool to see too, was just
Right.
the support the community offered, and also that this is a unique way for people to come together. So
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. Well, speaking of that, and I know on the Artist Salon you sang, which was very moving, for those of us on here. And so I know we talked a little bit before we jumped on the live that you have a song that you want to share with us today. So I will let you take it away.
Okay. Couple of caveats, listeners. I just, because we talked about this, about maybe doing a song, but all the songs that I ever sort of like, I don't know, they're about lost love. And so I didn't feel like it was appropriate for this. So I wrote a song for this community, for our community yesterday. So it's very short. It's like part of the song and it's brand new. So, lyrics are the, maybe not, maybe a little on the nose, but many caveats. So I'm just sing this little piece of the song. And I didn't write the lyrics down, but you won't know because it's new. This is the song, the weary song, the weary song, for the weary day. I know you can hear me, and you are near me today. Though the road is long, hold on. And this is for the weary, weary me.
Aw, that was very sweet.
A little short little ditty. I'll probably work it into a real song, but it's not very.
Well, when you do, let us know, as we will
Mhm.
can bring you back on for a live performance, or we can figure out how to share it with the community. So thank you so much. And I've heard a couple of, so the people who are looking at the comments, that everyone is just really loves your book, and is just finding it to be really wonderful, and they've really enjoyed reading it. So yeah, so thank you for putting your story out there on paper. And I love that you said like it was sold in 2010 and then finally got to print in 2020. So it just shows again of the book process is long and tedious with edits and all of that, but it's just wonderful that you took the time and energy to put it down, because I know it will be valuable for many individuals in this community and beyond who are struggling with other illnesses that may not be well defined. So
Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate you having me, and thanks to everybody that came and watched. And
yeah.
yeah, just I appreciate you guys and what you do so much. I mean, I know that you know this from the people in the community, but you really do an incredible service for all of us, and it means a lot. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Like I said, community is the heart of what we do. So we're not here without you guys. So, but I do want to quickly touch on the book giveaway that we are doing. So we're going to do one book, and it can go anywhere around the world. Hopefully that books can travel. But obviously we know that time delay of the mail is significant these days, but we'll get to you. So we're going to do if you comment with an emoji on this post. So on this Facebook post, I think I'm pointing down because I pretend like it's underneath us. With any emoji, it can be whether you can pick an emoji about your feelings about this interview, about the book. It can be anything. You'll have 48 hours to comment with an emoji. So until Friday afternoon, you can post a comment or your emoji comment, and then we will select one person from those posts, and then we will announce the winner. I think Friday afternoon, and so then we'll get you a book. So yeah, so also yeah, we sent out an email earlier, but maybe we'll post in the comments about where you can purchase this book. And then so yeah, so thank you again, and if you have any questions, we will we'll see you in the comments.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.